For 1 year, Jax Reynolds visited 3 graves every Sunday. His wife, his twin daughters. He brought flowers, whispered apologies, and wished he had died with them. Then a homeless girl tugged his jacket and said 7 words that shattered everything. "Your daughters aren't dead. I saw them." If this story touches your heart, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps us bring more powerful stories to your screen. The rain fell softly on Oak Hill Cemetery, turning the grass into a carpet of grey-green and filling the air with the smell of wet earth and dying flowers. Jax Reynolds knelt before 3 headstones, his leather jacket soaked through, his hands trembling as he arranged fresh daisies in the small vases he had installed months ago. Tanya Marie Reynolds, beloved wife and mother, 1986-2023. Rosie Ann Reynolds, precious daughter, 2016-2023. Leah Grace Reynolds, precious daughter, 2016-2023. "Hey, girls," Jax whispered, his voice cracking. "Daddy's here. I brought your favorites." He did this every Sunday, rain or shine, for exactly 52 weeks now. 1 year since the accident that took everything from him. Jax was 41 years old. He had spent 20 years with the Hells Angels, earned the nickname Reaper for reasons he no longer spoke about. He had done terrible things, seen terrible things, been a terrible man. But Tanya had changed him. Their daughters had changed him. He had left the club 3 years ago, started fresh, built a life that was simple and good and full of love. He worked as a mechanic, coached Little League, helped with homework and made pancakes on Sunday mornings. Then the truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. Jax wasn't in the car. He was at work, fixing a transmission, when his phone rang with news that ended his world. The funeral was closed casket. All 3 of them. The crash had been too severe for viewings. Jax had stood there in a black suit, accepting condolences from people whose faces he couldn't remember, feeling nothing, because feeling anything would have destroyed him. Now he felt everything. Every Sunday, at these graves, the numbness lifted, and the grief poured through him like acid. "I'm sorry," he said, the same words he always said. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I should have been there. I should have protected you." He stayed for an hour, talking to headstones that never answered, telling his daughters about the flowers blooming in the yard they would never see again, telling Tanya he still slept on his side of the bed, still couldn't bear to touch her pillow. When he finally stood to leave, his knees ached and his heart felt hollow. That's when the girl appeared. She was small, maybe 8 or 9, with tangled brown hair and clothes that were 2 sizes too big and filthy. Her face was thin, her eyes too old for her age. "Mister?" Jax turned. "Yeah? Are those your family?" She pointed at the graves. "Were. They were my family." The girl studied the headstones, her lips moving as she read the names. Then she looked up at Jax with an expression he couldn't identify. "The little girls," she said. "The twins, Rosie and Leah." Jax's heart clenched. "What about them?" "They're not dead, mister." The world stopped. "What did you say?" "Your daughters. They're not dead." The girl's voice was matter-of-fact, as if she was discussing the weather. "I saw them. At the shelter. They told me their names. They have a picture of you in a locket. They cry for their daddy every night." Jax grabbed the girl's shoulders. Too hard, he knew, but he couldn't stop himself. "That's not funny. That's not a joke you make. Do you understand? My daughters are dead." The girl didn't flinch, didn't cry, just looked at him with those ancient eyes. "I'm not lying, mister. I don't lie. Lying is how you get hurt on the streets." She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and gold, a locket. Jax's hands shook as he took it. He knew this locket. He had given it to Tanya on their 5th anniversary. Inside was a tiny photo of him holding the twins when they were newborns. "Where did you get this?" "Leah gave it to me for safekeeping. She said if I ever found a man who looked like the picture, I should tell him where they are." The girl paused. "You look like the picture." Jax couldn't breathe. His vision was blurring. This was impossible. His daughters were buried in the ground beneath his feet. He had seen the death certificates. He had signed papers. He had mourned for a year, but this locket was real. This locket was in his hands. "Take me to them," he heard himself say. "Right now. Take me to my daughters." The girl nodded solemnly. "Follow me, mister. But you should know. They're scared. Really scared. The bad people told them you didn't want them anymore, that you threw them away. I would never—" "I know, that's why I found you." The girl turned and started walking. "My name's Lara, by the way. What's yours?" "Jax. My name is Jax." "Okay, Jax, let's go find your girls." The shelter wasn't really a shelter. It was an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, filled with debris, broken machinery, and the forgotten people that society pretended didn't exist. Homeless families huddled in corners, burning trash for warmth despite the summer heat. Children played in the dirt with toys, scavenged from dumpsters. Jax felt sick as Lara led him through the maze of makeshift camps. This was where his daughters had been living, while he brought flowers to empty graves. "They stay in the back," Lara explained, "away from the scary men. I showed them a safe spot." "How long have they been here?" "Maybe 2 months. They ran away from the bad house. The one where the people hurt them." Jax's fists clenched. "Hurt them how?" Lara looked at him with those old eyes. "You don't want to know, mister. But they have bruises, and they flinch when people raise their hands." Rage boiled in Jax's chest. The old instincts, the ones he had buried when he left the club, were screaming for violence. Someone had hurt his daughters. Someone had touched his babies. But first, he had to find them. They reached a corner of the warehouse partitioned off by hanging tarps and cardboard boxes. Lara stopped. "They're in there. But mister, don't scare them. They've been scared enough." Jax nodded. He took a deep breath. Then he pushed aside the tarp. 2 girls sat on a dirty mattress, their arms wrapped around each other. They were thin, too thin, with matted hair and clothes that were barely rags. Their faces were smudged with dirt, and even in the dim light, Jax could see the yellow-green of fading bruises on their arms. But he would know those faces anywhere. Rosie, Laya, his daughters, his babies, alive. "Rosie?" His voice came out as a whisper. "Laya?" The girls looked up. For a moment there was only confusion. Then recognition dawned. "Daddy?" Rosie's voice was tiny, disbelieving. "Daddy, is that you?" Jax fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. "Yeah, baby, it's me. It's Daddy." Neither girl moved. They stared at him like he was a ghost. "You came back," Laya whispered. "They said you didn't want us. They said you threw us away." "Never." Jax crawled forward slowly, not wanting to frighten them. "I would never throw you away. I thought you were dead. I thought I lost you. I've been visiting your graves for a year." "Graves?" Rosie's face crumpled. "You thought we died. In the accident. They told me you died in the accident with Mommy." Jax's voice broke completely. "But you're here. You're alive. My babies are alive." Something broke in the girls. The walls they had built to survive crumbled. They launched themselves at Jax, small bodies crashing into his chest, tiny arms wrapping around his neck. "Daddy! Daddy! Daddy!" Jax held them and sobbed. He had dreamed of this moment 1,000 times, his daughters in his arms again, always waking to the crushing reality that it would never happen. But it was happening. They were real. They were here. "I've got you," he whispered into their hair. "Daddy's got you. I'm never letting go again." Never. They stayed like that for a long time. 3 broken people clinging to each other in the wreckage of a forgotten warehouse. When Jax finally pulled back, he looked at his daughters. Really looked. The bruises, the thinness, the fear that still lingered in their eyes. "Who did this to you?" he asked quietly. "Who hurt you?" Rosie and Laya exchanged glances, the kind of glance that spoke of shared trauma, shared secrets. "The family they put us with," Rosie said finally. "After the accident, they said Mommy was dead and you didn't want us. They put us in a house with people who were supposed to take care of us. But they didn't take care of us," Laya continued. "They hurt us, made us do chores all day, hit us when we cried, locked us in the closet when we asked about you." Jax's vision went red. Who? Give me names. The Hendersons, that's what they were called. Rosie shuddered. We ran away 3 months ago. Been hiding ever since. We were scared they'd find us, scared nobody would believe us. I believe you. Jax pulled them close again. And I promise you, the people who hurt you are going to pay. But first, we're going home. We're going to get you clean, get you fed, get you safe, okay? The girls nodded, but Laya hesitated. Daddy, is our room still there, the one with the purple walls? Jax's heart shattered and rebuilt in the same instant. Yeah, baby. Your room is exactly the way you left it. I couldn't change anything. It still has your stuffed animals, your books, everything. For the first time, both girls smiled. It was the most beautiful thing Jax had ever seen. The next 24 hours were a blur of doctors, police officers, and paperwork. Jax took the girls to the emergency room first. The examination confirmed what he had feared. Signs of physical abuse, malnutrition, and psychological trauma. The doctors were required to report it, which meant Child Protective Services got involved. That's when things got complicated. Mr. Reynolds, I understand this is an emotional situation. The social worker, a thin man named Carl Dunn, sat across from Jax in a hospital conference room. But there are protocols. We can't just hand these children over to you. They're my children, I'm their father. According to our records, you relinquished custody after the accident. You signed documents stating you were unfit to care for them. I never signed anything. I was told they were dead. Dunn shuffled papers with an expression of bored bureaucracy. The signatures are on file. As far as the state is concerned, Rosie and Leah Reynolds are wards of the system. Placing them with you would require a full custody evaluation, background checks, home inspections. Those girls were abused in your system. Jax slammed his fist on the table. They were beaten, starved, and left to live on the streets. And you want to put them back? I understand you're upset. Upset? Upset? Jax stood up, looming over the social worker. My daughters were stolen from me. Someone forged my signature. Someone told them I abandoned them. Someone put them in a house where they were tortured. And you're sitting there talking about protocols. Dunn's face remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. Something that looked almost like fear. Mr. Reynolds, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down. If you can't control yourself, I'll have security remove you from the building. Jax wanted to kill him. The old version of himself, the Reaper, would have already had this man against the wall, would have extracted the truth through pain and terror. But he wasn't that man anymore. He couldn't be that man. Not if he wanted to get his daughters back. He took a deep breath, sat down, forced his hands to unclench. I want a lawyer, he said quietly. I want a full investigation into how my living children were declared dead, and I want the names of everyone involved in placing them with the Hendersons. Dunn's smile was thin and cold. That's your right, Mr. Reynolds, but I should warn you, the system doesn't like to admit mistakes. This could take months, years even. I don't care if it takes the rest of my life. Those are my daughters, and I'm getting them back. He stood and walked to the door. Then he turned back. One more thing, Mr. Dunn. If anything happens to my girls while they're in your system, anything at all, I will hold you personally responsible, and I promise you, you don't want that. He left before Dunn could respond. In the hallway, Lara was waiting. She had refused to leave the hospital, insisted on staying near Rosie and Leah. What happened? She asked. Bureaucracy happened, but I'm not giving up. Jax looked at this strange, brave little girl who had given him his life back. Lara, I need to ask you something. Will you help me? Will you tell people what you saw, where you found the girls, what condition they were in? Lara nodded without hesitation. I'll tell everyone. I'll scream it from rooftops if I have to. You might have to. Jax knelt in front of her. You saved my daughters. You gave me a miracle. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me, mister. Lara's old eyes softened slightly. Just be a good daddy to them. That's all they want. That's all any kid wants. Jax thought about his own father, absent, violent, worthless. He thought about the man he had become in the club, the violence, the rage, the destruction. And he thought about the man he wanted to be. "I will," he promised. "I'll be the father they deserve, whatever it takes." That night, Jax made 2 phone calls. The first was to a lawyer named Laurie Chen, who specialized in custody cases and had a reputation for taking on corrupt systems. The second was to a number he hadn't called in 3 years, a number that connected to a world he had left behind. "Yeah?" The voice was gruff, familiar. "It's Jax. I need help." A pause. "Thought you were out." "I am. But my daughters, they're alive. Someone stole them, put them in the system, told me they were dead." Another pause, longer this time. "What do you need, brother?" "Information. There's a social worker named Carl Dunn. I need to know everything about him. And a family called the Hendersons, who were foster parents. I need to know what happened in that house." "Consider it done. Anything else?" Jax thought about the cold look in Dunn's eyes, the way he had smiled when talking about protocols. "Yeah, I need to know how deep this goes. Who signed those fake documents? Who declared my living children dead? Who put them in a house with abusers?" "That's a lot of digging." "I don't care. Someone stole a year of my life. Someone hurt my babies. And I'm going to find out who." The voice on the other end was quiet for a moment. Then, "Welcome back, brother, even if it's just for this." Jax hung up. He wasn't back, not really, but he would use every resource, every connection, every skill he had to get his daughters home, and God help anyone who stood in his way. The information came faster than Jax expected. His old contacts in the club were thorough. Within 72 hours, he had a file on Carl Dunn that would make any prosecutor salivate. Dunn wasn't just incompetent, he was corrupt. For years, he had been funneling children into specific foster homes, homes that paid him kickbacks for every child placed. The Hendersons were his biggest clients. They had taken in over 30 children in the past decade, collecting government checks while providing the bare minimum of care. But it went deeper. "The death certificates," Laurie Chen said, spreading documents across her desk. "They were signed by a Dr. Marcus Webb at County General, except Dr. Webb died 2 years ago. Someone used his credentials posthumously. Someone forged death certificates for my living children. Someone forged a lot of things. Your signature on custody relinquishment papers, hospital transfer records, even the coroner's report." Laurie looked at Jax with grim determination. "This wasn't a mistake, Mr. Reynolds. This was a conspiracy. Someone specifically targeted your daughters. Why? Why would anyone do this?" Laurie hesitated. "There's one more thing. The Hendersons. They weren't just foster parents. According to records we've obtained, they had connections to people who paid premium prices for, access to certain children." Jax's blood turned to ice. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your daughters were lucky. They ran away before the worst could happen. But other children in that house weren't so fortunate." The rage that erupted in Jax was unlike anything he had felt before. It was cold, focused, absolutely lethal. "I want every name," he said quietly. "Everyone involved, everyone who touched this, everyone who looked the other way. We're building the case, but Jax, I need you to let me handle this legally. If you go after these people yourself..." "I know. I go to prison. My daughters go back into the system." He took a deep breath. "I'll let you handle it, but Laurie, make sure they pay. Every single one of them. I will, I promise." The custody hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. During that time, Jax was allowed supervised visits with Rosie and Lyra. They met in a sterile room at the CPS office, with a social worker watching their every interaction. It was torture. But Jax made the most of every minute. He brought books. The Velveteen Rabbit was their favorite, the story of a toy that becomes real through love. He brought drawings he had made, terrible stick figures that made the girls laugh for the first time in months. He brought photos of their room at home, unchanged, waiting for them. "When can we come home, Daddy?" Rosie asked during the 3rd visit. "Soon, baby. Daddy's working on it." "Do you promise?" Jax looked at his daughter, at the hope and fear warring in her eyes, and made a vow. "I promise. On my life, you're coming home." The night before the hearing, Jax sat in his living room, staring at a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched. The twins' bedroom door was open, just like always. He could see their beds, perfectly made, their stuffed animals arranged on the pillows, the purple walls Leia had chosen, the star stickers Rosie had placed on the ceiling. He had preserved this room like a shrine for a year, a memorial to daughters he thought were dead. Now it would be their room again. It had to be. His phone buzzed. A text from Laurie. "Ready for tomorrow. We've got everything we need. Trust the process." Jax wanted to trust it, but he had seen what the system had done to his daughters. He had seen how it protected abusers and punished victims. He didn't trust the process at all. But he trusted himself, and he trusted the truth. Tomorrow everyone would hear it. The courtroom was packed. Laurie had worked her magic with the media. The story of twin girls declared dead, placed with abusers, and found living in an abandoned warehouse had captured national attention. Reporters filled the gallery. Cameras waited outside. Carl Dunn sat at the opposing table, looking considerably less smug than he had in the hospital. His lawyer, a nervous young man clearly in over his head, shuffled papers with trembling hands. Judge Patricia Moreno presided. She was known for being tough but fair, with a particular intolerance for corruption in the system she served. "This hearing will determine the custody of minors Rosie and Leia Reynolds," she announced. "Ms. Chen, you may begin." Laurie stood. "Your Honor, we intend to prove that these children were systematically failed by the people tasked with protecting them. The documents were forged, procedures violated, and innocent girls were placed in harm's way through deliberate corruption." She called her first witness, Dr. Angela Martinez, the emergency room physician who had examined the twins. "The children showed signs of prolonged abuse," Dr. Martinez testified. "Healed fractures consistent with repeated trauma, malnutrition, psychological indicators of severe neglect and mistreatment. These were not well cared for children." Next came Detective Robert Shaw, who had investigated the Henderson home after Jax's complaint. "We found evidence of systematic abuse going back years," Shaw testified. "Physical evidence, testimony from former foster children, financial records showing unexplained payments. The Hendersons have been arrested and are facing multiple felony charges." Then Laurie played her trump card. "The court calls Lara Williams." Didu, the homeless girl, walked to the witness stand, looking small and fragile in the borrowed dress someone had found for her. But her voice was steady as she took the oath. "Lara, can you tell the court how you met Rosie and Leia Reynolds?" "I found them in the warehouse where I live. They were hiding, scared of everyone. I shared my food with them and they told me their story." "What did they tell you?" "They said their daddy was dead. That's what the mean people told them. But then Leia showed me a locket with his picture. I knew if I could find that man, he would help them." "And did you find him?" "Yes, Mom, at the cemetery. He was visiting their graves. He thought they were dead, but they weren't." Lara looked at Jax with those ancient eyes. "He cried when he saw them. I never saw a grown-up cry like that." The courtroom was silent. Several reporters were wiping their eyes. Laurie turned to the judge. "Your Honor, we have one more witness. We call Carl Dunn." Dunn's lawyer objected, argued, pleaded, but Judge Moreno allowed it. On the stand, Dunn's composure cracked under Laurie's questioning. She produced documents, forged signatures, fraudulent reports, financial records showing payments from the Hendersons. She presented testimony from other families whose children had been misplaced under Dunn's supervision. By the end, Dunn was sweating, stammering, contradicting himself. "Mr. Dunn," Laurie said finally, "did you knowingly place Rosie and Leia Reynolds with an abusive family after forging documents to declare them dead and remove them from their father's custody?" I was just following orders. The system is broken. I didn't. I never meant." "Whose orders?" Dunn's eyes darted around the courtroom. Whatever he saw there made his last defenses collapse. "There's a network," he whispered. "People who pay for access to kids. The Hendersons were part of it. I was just the placement guy. I didn't hurt anyone." "You didn't hurt anyone?" Laurie's voice was ice. "You stole 2 children from their father." You put them in a house where they were beaten. You left them to live on the streets. And you want this court to believe you didn't hurt anyone?" Dunn had no answer. Judge Moreno had heard enough. This court finds overwhelming evidence of fraud, corruption, and child endangerment. Custody of Rosie and Leah Reynolds is hereby granted to their biological father, Jax Reynolds, effective immediately. She turned to Dunn. "Mr. Dunn, you are remanded to custody pending criminal charges. Bailiff, take him away." As Dunn was led out in handcuffs, Jax felt hands grabbing his arms. He looked down to find Rosie and Leah, released from their foster care supervision the moment the ruling was announced, clinging to him. "We get to go home?" Rosie asked. "Yeah, baby." Jax pulled them close, tears streaming down his face. "We get to go home." Healing didn't happen overnight. The first weeks were the hardest. Rosie and Leah had nightmares almost every night, screaming for Jax in the darkness. They flinched at loud noises. They hoarded food in their pockets, terrified that it might be taken away. Jax enrolled them in therapy with Dr. Sarah Miller, a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. He attended sessions too, learning how to help his daughters process what they had experienced. "The key is consistency," Dr. Miller told him. "They need to know you're not going to disappear, that their needs will be met, that they're safe." So, Jax built routines. Breakfast together every morning, pancakes on Sundays just like before, walking them to school and picking them up, homework at the kitchen table, dinner as a family, stories at bedtime. The Velveteen Rabbit became their nightly ritual, the story of a stuffed rabbit who becomes real through a child's love. "How do you become real?" Rosie asked one night. Jax read from the book. "It doesn't happen all at once. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept." "Are we real, Daddy?" Leah asked. Jax closed the book and looked at his daughters. Their hair was clean now, their cheeks filling out, the haunted look slowly fading from their eyes. "You've always been real to me," he said, "the most real people I've ever known." 6 months after the custody hearing, Jax drove the girls to the cemetery. They hadn't been back since that rainy day when Lara had found him, but there was someone they needed to visit. Tanya's grave was covered in fresh flowers. Jax came every week now, but he brought the girls today for the first time. "This is where Mommy is," he explained. "Her body is here, but she's also up in heaven, watching over us." Rosie knelt and touched the headstone. "Hi, Mommy, it's Rosie. Me and Leah are okay. Daddy found us," Leah added. "We live in our old house again. Our room still has purple walls. Daddy makes pancakes, but they're not as good as yours." Jax laughed through his tears. "Hey now." "It's true, Daddy." Leah grinned. Mommies were fluffier. They stayed for an hour talking to Tanya about school, about friends, about all the little things that made up their lives. Jax told her about the trial, the healing, the slow work of rebuilding. "I'm trying to be a good dad," he said quietly. "The dad you always believed I could be. I'm not perfect. I never will be. But I'm here, every day. That's the one thing I can promise." On the way home, they stopped at the park, at the same park where Jax used to take them before the accident. The pond was still there, and so were the ducks. Rosie and Leah ran to the water's edge with bags of breadcrumbs. Jax watched from a bench, his heart fuller than he had ever imagined possible. "Mind if I sit?" He looked up. Lara stood there, looking cleaner than before, wearing new clothes. "Lara, of course." He made room on the bench. "I've been trying to find you. The shelter said you disappeared." "I do that sometimes." She sat beside him. "I wanted to see if they were okay. Your girls. They're getting there. Because of you." Jax turned to face her. "Lara, I've been thinking. You saved my family. You gave me a miracle. And you're still living on the streets." "It's what I know." "It doesn't have to be." Jax took a breath. "I talked to Dr. Miller and Laurie. They helped me start some paperwork. Foster care paperwork." Lara's eyes widened. "I'm not trying to replace your family or whatever happened before, but I have a spare room, and my girls adore you. And I think maybe we're supposed to be together, all of us." Lara was quiet for a long time. She watched Rosie and Leia laughing at the ducks, their joy pure and simple and healed. "I've never had a family," she said finally. "Not a real one. Neither had I for a long time. But I learned something this year. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who fights for you, who refuses to give up." He smiled. "You showed up for my daughters when no one else would. That makes you family, whether the paperwork exists or not." Lara's tough facade cracked. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll try." 1 year later, Jack stood in the backyard of a new house, watching 3 girls chase each other across the grass. Rosie and Leia were 9 now, healthy and thriving. They had friends, hobbies, dreams for the future. The nightmares were rare. The flinching had stopped. They laughed easily and loved freely. And Lara, officially Lara Reynolds for 6 months now, had transformed. At 10 years old, she was catching up in school, making friends, learning what it meant to be a kid instead of a survivor. The investigation into the child trafficking network had led to 47 arrests across 3 states. Carl Dunn had pleaded guilty and was serving 20 years. The Hendersons would never see freedom again. Dr. Miller had told Jax that he was a natural father, that his patience, his consistency, his willingness to learn and grow had made all the difference. "Being a good parent isn't about being perfect," she said. "It's about being present, about showing up, day after day, even when it's hard. That's what you do." Jax thought about that as he watched his daughters play. He thought about the man he used to be, the violence, the rage, the nickname that still sent chills through certain circles. He thought about the man he was now, a father, a protector, someone who built instead of destroyed. "Daddy!" Rosie called out. "Come play with us!" Jack smiled and walked toward his daughters. He had lost them once, had mourned them for a year, had knelt at their graves and wished for death, but they were here now, alive, happy, his. And he would spend the rest of his life making sure they knew how loved they were, because that's what fathers do. They show up, they stay, they love, no matter what. The end.